Hello and welcome to Good Morning UK, Have Your Say, a Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. Thank you folks for coming in and watching, and please do share this around. A lot to speak about this morning on our 16th Good Morning UK Have Your Say. And already we've got Linda there watching, first as always from London. Good to see you again, Linda, and TC also. Hello Alistair, and hello all fellow Unionists from all over our wonderful United Kingdom. And it's been wonderful for at least 314 years coming up this Saturday, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Hello to Ryan from the West Riding of Yorkshire, always good to see you, and Debbie, great stuff Debbie, hope you are keeping well, and Barry and Frankie. Thank you Debbie, I eventually got a haircut this week, and at least a stone lighter as a consequence. Sandra, thanks for you. Sandra, we'll be hopefully seeing you at the weekend at our celebration, which I'm going to speak about. Good morning to Jose. And Ken from Fife. Fantastic stuff. Now, and Anne from Northern Ireland. This coming Saturday is the 1st of May, and some of you may know what the 1st of May is all about. 1st of May is what we call Great Britain Day, for it was a day in 1707 that the Parliaments of Scotland and England joined together to make the Parliament of Great Britain. And we're going to celebrate that fact publicly this coming Saturday. Good morning, Tommy and Susan and Andrew, good to see you also. And Catherine, hopefully we'll see you at the weekend as well. We've got a good wee crowd coming for our celebration in George Square on Saturday at, we'll give you the times and so on, just coming up shortly. Michael, good morning from the Borough. God save the Queen. And from Tommy at Newcastle upon Tyne. Ian won our prize last week and we sent him the mints. We've got a great prize coming up this day at our competition, which will be coming up at the top of the hour, just before 11 o'clock. Ronald, ready to raise the flag and celebrate this Saturday, 314 years of our great union. Wonderful. Well, if you're anywhere near Glasgow, Ronald, please do consider joining us. I'll speak about that right now, in fact. And this is something that we've been planning for quite a while now, and we've always wanted to do it. We've always wanted to celebrate the union of the Parliaments, which came together on the 1st of May 1707. And as it happens, this Saturday is the 1st of May. 314 years since the Union of Parliaments. So we're going to have a small rally, a small celebration. We've got the flags of all the home nations. We've got lots of Union Jacks. We've got some banners as well, which are pertinent to the Great Scottish Ejection, which of course is coming up 6 days later, or 5 days later, on the 6th of May. So we're going to be creating some fantastic visuals for the media, and we're going to be reminding everybody looking in that there are a majority of people in Scotland who support the Union. Now, as it happens, the Scottish Nationalists are also going to be holding a rally that day. It won't be a rally for unity, it will be a rally for division. So they're going to be holding a rally in the opposite side of the square, and we're going to be holding our own pro-British, pro-United Kingdom, pro-Union rally on the other side of the square. And it's all been worked out with the authorities, and so it's all perfectly safe. And we would urge anybody who wants to come along, please do tell me first. Send an email to contact@aforceforgood.uk, or message the page, or leave a comment here, and I'll see it, so that I know that you're coming, and we can provide enough flags, because we're providing all the flags and all the accoutrements, so that there's no conflict of messaging. Good, Angus is coming. Looking forward to Saturday. Excellent stuff, Angus. Please do bring your friends. Good morning, Alan. Gerard wonders why anyone in their right mind would want to break up the greatest union in history. A very good question. A very good question. Susan from sunny Yorkshire. So yes, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about this rally, or we're calling it a celebration. We're expecting probably about 50 people, so it's a modest number, but the more the merrier, but it will be at least 50 people. And we'll provide all the banners, we'll provide all the flags, we'll have quite a few St George's crosses there as well, we'll have saltires there as well, because of course this was the coming together of Scotland and England. The kingdoms of Scotland and England in 1707, represented by those flags. So it's going to be a very colourful display, and to our knowledge, it is the first time ever in the history of the world that there's been such a celebratory rally in George Square on this particular matter, at least to our knowledge anyway, and that's what we're going with. First ever in the history of the world, and it's going to therefore be a historic day, so if you can make it, please do come along. And it's great fun, meeting like minds and getting to know new people and getting to just have a good time. And I'll be giving a couple of short speeches, because we'll be addressing ourselves this time. We're not going to be bothering shouting over at the Nats on the other side of the square, although they'll be shouting at us, I might add, but we're just going to kind of largely ignore them this time round. I'll be giving a speech. The other director of A Force for Good, Ronnie Kane, he'll be giving a speech about Glasgow in the Union. And if you're watching and if you'd like to say a few words, we'll have an open mic, and so please do consider sending me notice of that, and tell me what you'd like to talk about, and you can have 5 minutes on the mic as well, on our brand new mic as well. So really looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting day and a fun day. And so I suggest that it's going to start formally at 1 o'clock, so you have to be there at least from 12:30 in order to get sorted and so on, and it will go on to 2:15, okay? So book your times around that. Arriving from about 12:30, no later, in the square. We'll be there from 12:15, and then departing the square at 2:15. And we'll have 3 marshals who will be looking out for us and looking after us. And of course, there will also be the authorities there as well, just checking everything's going to be going okay. So it's going to be an exciting day, but importantly, we'll be creating positive pro-UK visuals for the media. You know, this is the sort of thing that A Force for Good can do. We're not financed with like lots of money, really, but what we can do for a low budget is this sort of outdoor activity, which can be very valuable as far as getting good optics in the media is concerned. Derek says, hope to see you on Saturday. Fantastic, Derek. We do hope that you can make it. And as you say, we need to get Unionists there. Both Stephen's asking, did anyone see last night's debate? If you did see last night's debate, please chime in with your thoughts on that. Who won it? How do you think Sturgeon performed? How do you think Sarwar performed? How do you think Douglas Ross performed? And As for the flower pot man of the Scottish Cabbage Party, probably the least said the better. TC says, well done everyone who will be attending George Square for the Union celebration. Good man, Robert. Afternoon to you as well. Aye. So, yes, chime in with your thoughts on that. Adam says, you could maybe invite George Galloway and Douglas Ross to the Unionist rally. Well, it's possibly something that they would maybe choose not to attend. I think what you often find, but who knows, but often what you find with politicians is that they prefer to be running their own particular rally rather than going on to somebody else's. We're probably not at the stage yet where politicians would be lining up to be asked to speak at such a thing. But that day may be coming, because we'd like to make this an annual event, a celebration of the Union in the heart of Scotland, in the heart of Glasgow, in George Square, every year on the 1st of May. 1st of May, Great British Union Day celebration. That's a good concept, isn't it? We've always wanted to do it, but it's never really been right up until now. But now it's the Saturday before the Scottish ejection. It's the final countdown, and still we stand tall. Before the Scottish ejection. And where are we going to eject all of these SNP MSPs to? And it's possible, it's possible. If we don't talk about it as being possible, then it will never happen. And I'm hopeful that we will purge the Sturge and give Humza the heave, as Tommy points out. Those groups are aware of it. I know that. They're certainly aware of it. They've been doing good work themselves with billboard posters throughout Scotland in certain areas. Billboard posters isn't something that we would do. It's not something that we would put our money towards, our limited funds, but we're pleased to see these other groups doing that and putting out these posters, some of which are very effective. So good, best of luck to these groups. Everybody's got their part to play, undoubtedly. Scott says, all the leaders except Douglas Ross failed to hold Nicola to account last night. That's what I heard as well. I heard that the others were not very forthright, shall we say, in their points of view. Stephen, you asked the question, what's your opinion on who won the debate last night from an objective point of view? Be interested to see that. Our Humza banner is safe and sound, shall we say that, Alan? Our Humza banner is safe and sound, and it will be making an appearance on Saturday. That's the banner that we hung up outside Humza Yousaf's office last Friday that says, "Get Humza out, Scottish ejection," with a picture of Humza in his 1984 style Thought Police uniform. And we've got one to purge the Sturge as well. That will be making an appearance on Saturday. Great visuals for the media if they want to use them, that's for sure. Yeah, it is good news. It is good news. It is a cracker. It is a cracker. If anybody's seen it, we've been putting it out on our Facebook pages and putting it out on our Twitter and so on. It's got huge engagement. Talking about huge engagement, please do retweet this if you can. If you can retweet this broadcast with a positive quote, a positive comment, then we'll retweet you to over 26,000 people, which is your way of getting out and getting heard by other people. So please do retweet this if you're watching. Retweet it with a positive comment so we can then retweet you. Oh yeah, so it's all happening this week. All happening this week in the final countdown. Today is 8 days to go. Tomorrow, Thursday the 7th. Thursday it will be 7 days to go exactly. And it's all happening. Although, of course, as we know, a significant number of Scotland has voted already via the postal ballot. And, you know, somebody made a comment on Twitter the other day, which I thought was very good. Somebody from one of the small minor parties pointing out that they still hadn't had the opportunity to get their message out to everybody. Yet so many people had already voted, which was a bit like ordering food at a restaurant before you've seen the menu. Ordering food before you've seen the menu. I thought that was quite a good analogy, is that the word, to use? Ordering food before you've seen the full menu. And that's the danger of postal voting, which almost 25% of people now in Scotland are doing, for better or for worse. We've made our view on postal voting clear. We think it's a danger in the long term, but that's probably where they're trying to move us all towards these days, is to just a mass system of postal voting, which would be a corruption ultimately of our democracy. But that's the way things are going in these strange times that we live in. Greg, happy to see our Union flag flying a lot in Scotland now. Makes a change. Greg, if you'd like to come along on the 1st, please do so. Be there for 1 o'clock. We'll supply all the banners and flags. And so if you come along, if you're looking for a flag, find one of our people who are handing out the flags and just take one there. Sandra makes a good point here. Don't forget, you can hand your postal vote into your polling station on the day. We took postal votes a couple of years ago when we went on holiday, yes, and have just continued to have them, but I take them and hand them in now. That's an interesting thing. So you don't have to fill them in until, for example, the actual day of the election. And then you just, instead of putting it in a pillar box, you simply take it along and you give it to the people at the polling station. That's a good way of doing it if you prefer to hold back until you've seen the full menu. Stephen says, one thing that concerns me is that many people are registered to vote because of furlough. How many are still in Scotland? Yeah, true. Well, do you know what? It's we're stuck with it, aren't we? We're stuck with it. But I'm looking forward to the 6th of May, and I can't wait to vote. But we're not going to know what the results are until the Sunday, because normally we would know in the early morning of that night, but the authorities are taking their sweet time to count all the votes because of all this nonsense, I believe, with social distancing and so on. And so what's going to happen is that the number of counters are going to be much reduced. The number of people who can from the political parties who can go to watch the count is also being severely reduced. And not only that, but the counters and the people witnessing the counters who can normally rub up pretty close together. I mean, I've been at lots of counts in my life, and you can stand right at the desk, a couple of feet from the person who's counting, and you can just watch their hands. Right, that's not going to be allowed this time. What you've got to do is you've got to stand 6 feet away. They give you a wee spot that you can stand in, and if you've got good eyesight, you can peer over 6 feet away to see what's going on. Of course, that's what they'll say is the best that they can do under the circumstances. But unfortunately, that's what we're getting, which again is a corruption of the democratic process hitherto. And so when will it just move to, like, we're not even going to bother allowing people to come in and watch it, we're just going to let a computer add it all up? And of course that's what they do in America, and you've seen the absolute mess of the American democratic system now, which is just third world, basically, third world. And that rot set in when they allowed electronic voting machines and electronic counting machines to come in. I can't remember, it was at least 15 years ago, but nobody made a fuss about it, and now their system is broken, completely broken in America. Sorry for that, but it's the absolute fact in America. How they're going to recover their democracy, who knows? Anyway, let's concentrate about Great Britain here for a moment. Good to see Ollie. Now, Ollie was in last week, and the feedback, he was just such a great guest. People thought he was one of the best that we've had on. So thank you so much for coming on, Ollie. And we want to get you guys back in. And we want to get Carl on as well, but we know Carl works on a Wednesday morning. And we'll get David on as well. And Sandra says there should be a camera above them. Well, that's a point. That's a point. And also, when you vote, use a pen or a marker pen. I don't think it's really that likely in Scotland anyway that people are rubbing out your vote. But just to be sure, you can always use a pen anyway. You don't have to use the pencil that you're given. I always use a pen anyway, just for peace of mind. And there's a good point, Ryan. Union Day ought to be a bank holiday with street parties and celebration. Well, the thing about it is, it already is, in the sense that there's always a 1st of May bank holiday, which was brought in, I think, in the 1970s for trade unions. Okay, so we've already got a kind of bank holiday around that date, so it makes it awkward for it to be a new bank holiday around that date. But we're sympathetic with that idea, and take your bank holiday and celebrate the union of the United Kingdom on that day. Willie says that he's never voted for a separation party, nor will he ever use a postal vote as long as he's able to get to the polling station. Maybe I'm a bit paranoid, but I fear any chance of corruption in the counting. Well, it's always good to be a little bit paranoid. Just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean they're not actually after you. Is that the phrase? I think so. Ollie, no worries at all. Good. Sandra makes a good point regarding the camera. That would be a simple solution. It certainly would. Can the UK government take power away from Scotland like Spain did with Catalonia? In theory, yes. But in practice, that's unlikely. Well, it depends what you mean, of course. But certainly in the United Kingdom, it is the United Kingdom government which is ultimately in charge of everything. So it depends what you mean by taking away power. But it can certainly deny, quite rightly, a second separation referendum, because it is for the British government to have the duty and the right and the responsibility to hold the United Kingdom together on behalf of all the people that British Parliament represents. As we always say, this isn't just about Scotland, it's about breaking up the United Kingdom. And in that sense, all of the United Kingdom is involved, and all of the United Kingdom finds its involvement through the British Parliament. The British Parliament that came into being on the 1st of May in 1707. And I want to talk about that relationship in a moment, because I just want to talk briefly about this day in British history, because I want to give you the competition question as well within 5 minutes' time. Now, on this day, and this will also lead into what we're talking about in a minute, one of the Scotland's greatest sons, in our opinion, was born, and that was Henry Dundas, who was born on this day, 28th of April in 1742. And he was such a powerful politician in Scotland at the time, under the Prime Minister at the time, who was William Pitt the Younger. And he was born, as I say, in 1742. And he was at the forefront of promoting Britain's interests worldwide, and particularly promoting Britain's interests in the then empire. And that's why the Scottish nationalists today hate him. They hate him and they hate his memory, and they want to do everything to befoul it. And as many of you know, we've had a long-running campaign to stand up for Henry Dundas, not just because we like the bloke, but also simply to stand up because he's become like a symbol that the Nats... He's a symbol of British history that the Nats hate. So he symbolises so much of other things for them as well that they don't like. So we stand up for him. And last year, back in June, we actually physically had a counter demo to the so-called Black Lives Matter people, who had a rather pathetic demo themselves in St Andrew's Square, having a go at Dundas and his monument that stands there, and spreading all kind of lies. And of course we spread the truth about him, and we gave 3 speeches that day, all of which you can find on our website, aforceforgood.uk/blog. Go to June 2020 and you'll find all our speeches there about Henry Dundas, one of Scotland's greatest sons. And Jeremy Paxman has written that, quote, "No one did more to promote the interests of the Scots in the British Empire than Dundas." Paxman writes, "In Gilroy's famous cartoon, he stands kilted with one foot in London and the other in India, as fleets of merchant ships pass between his legs. But India was much more than a family business. So great was Dundas's more general patronage that the wit Sidney Smith observed that, quote, as long as he is in office, the Scotch may beget younger sons with the most perfect impunity, for he sends them by loads to the East Indies and all over the world." And he was one of the people that created the idea that Scots should go and populate the empire. And it's through him and, of course, others that the British Empire came to be very much associated with Scottish governors and Scottish district commissioners and Scottish doctors and shopkeepers and businessmen and scientists, to the point, of course, where Glasgow became known as the second city of the empire. And in a way, that's the sort of thing that we're continuing today. So that was Henry Dundas. Something else that happened on this day as well, on the 28th of April in 1978, was this song got to number 1. How many of you remember this song?
The greatest of them all, even the Mona Lisa takes a bow. This tired old man with hair like snow told northern folk it's time to go. The fever came and the good Lord mopped his brow. And he left us matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. He left left us chips on the corner of the street that were sparking clocks. Now he takes his brush and he waits outside them pearly gates to paint his matchstock men.
Matchstock men and matchstock cats and dogs.
Indeed, that was Brian and Michael, who had a number one on this day on the 28th of April 1978, with St Winifred's School Choir providing the backing. And St Winifred's School Choir went on to have a number one in 1980, the Christmas number one in 1980, with There's No One Quite Like Grandma. So there you go, you learn everything about British history on this programme, from Henry Dundas to Glasgow being the second city of the empire, to Brian and Michael having a number one on this day in 1978, to even St Winifred's School Choir having the Christmas number one in 1980. Goodness me, it is a nice song. Absolutely, it's a nice bit of nostalgia, that song. A nice bit of nostalgia, and it's like a song that teaches you about history, because you're like, well, who was Lowry? And then you go and you find out who he was. So I like songs that have got some kind of meaning in that sense, you know, educational, as well as being melodic. That's a fantastic wee song. And Brian and Michael, I know they still play together as well, and there's one or two songs, one or two videos of them doing matchstock men and matchstock cats and dogs on YouTube. Brings back happy memories. So we've got the competition this week is for, wait till you see this tin, by the way, wait till you see this. The competition is for this tin of jelly beans. And before I go any further, I just want to say thank you very much to the person who suggested that we get these jelly beans as prizes, and who helped us to get these tins as prizes. Thank you very much to that person. Now these are, you know, these are pretty substantial tins of jelly beans with a Union Jack tin, and inside you've got 50 different flavours of jelly beans. 50 different flavours of jelly beans. I've never even heard of such a thing. Everything from berry blue and apple pie flavour, to toasted marshmallow flavour, to tutti frutti flavour, to margarita flavour. I mean, these are substantial jelly beans, right? If you said, what's the kind of best jelly bean in the best jelly bean tin you could possibly find in the world, this would be it, okay? So this is the prize. This is the prize today. A tin of jelly beans, which will be winging its way to the person who can tell me and who sends their answer to contact@forceforgood.uk. The first person who sends this answer will get this tin of jelly beans, okay? And the question that I'm going to ask, which was based upon my bit in British history there, I said that the uncrowned King of Scotland was born today on the 28th of April 1742, and that was Henry Dundas. And can you tell me please where his amazing statue stands? It's in Edinburgh. What's the name of the square in Edinburgh where Henry Dundas's amazing statue stands? Okay, and the first person to get that will get that amazing tin of jelly beans, which I'm just going to hold up again for the benefit of the camera. There you go, jelly beans coming their way to the first person that can tell me what's the name of the square that Henry Dundas's statue stands in Edinburgh. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks, a song on my channel, Homeland. I think you will like it. Okay? I'll give it a look. Hank, you look like a musician. That's good. Good stuff. Let me take that down. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the election. Now, the Scottish National Party, they released their manifesto last week, and the Daily Telegraph commentator Alan Cochrane says that it wasn't particularly exciting unless you're an avid collector of broken promises, which I thought was quite amusing. And he goes on to point out that she is facing a challenge, as we know, from Alex Salmond. Now, I think we should watch Alex Salmond because the media are trying to dismiss him, but let me tell you, he does have a significant level of support among a certain number of the Scottish nationalists. For example, the people who will be in George Square holding their independence rally on Saturday at the opposite side of the square, while we're on the other side of the square, they'll all be voting for Alex Salmond. Of that, I'm certain. I don't even have to ask them. I know that they will be, okay? So he does have a significant level of support among people, and also interestingly as well, among quite a few Scottish nationalists who don't like the woke agenda of the Scottish National Party, especially those who don't like the, all of that sort of thing. They're voting for Salmond, who's playing to a slightly more quote-unquote traditional approach to things as far as, the gender rights and all that kind of stuff are concerned. A lot of the SNP are supporters don't like that and are in some cases hostile to it as well, so they'll be voting for Salmond. So Salmond will get more votes than the media are trying to pretend at the moment. Of that I've no doubt. But the danger with Salmond, of course, is he's selling what Cochrane here describes as instant separatism. Okay, so he's going, if he gets elected, or if any of his people get elected, they're going to be pushing at Nicola's ankles and pushing Nicola towards a second referendum, if indeed she did get a majority of seats, which again is very possibly not going to happen, but we're just thinking here as if she did. So he could be a real pain in her ankles, that's for certain. And he ends by saying, isn't it ridiculous that she keeps pushing this agenda? Because wasn't there an equally decisive majority against independence in 2014? So there's really no need for another vote on this issue. And she always plays up Brexit as if Brexit is the reason that we have to have another referendum. But people voted in 2014 knowing that Brexit was a possibility. We knew we could be voting to stay in a United Kingdom that was going to have a referendum on the EU. We all knew that, and we all knew that as a consequence Brexit might be a possibility, yet still we voted to stay in the EU. Okay, so Brexit can't be used as the reason. And as we pointed out in an article that we published a couple of weeks ago, a tiny little shift in the votes in Scotland and in England towards Remain could have meant that while England and Wales voted to leave, they had to stay in the UK because Scotland voted to remain. Okay, so it could have gone that way. It could have gone with England and Wales continuing to vote to leave, but Scotland holding the rest of the United Kingdom in because of a few thousand votes in Scotland for Remain. Okay? And if that had happened, well, it would have happened, because that's what happens within the United Kingdom. As it happened, we left the EU. But we all knew that was coming. We all knew that a vote for the EU was entirely possible, yet still back in 2014 we voted to stay in the UK. So that's really all that needs to be said by to that. And another point, of course, is in the SNP manifesto, they've got promises for lots of things. So, for example, if you vote for the SNP, you might not be voting for their desire for another referendum. You might be voting because you like their tax policy, or you might be voting because you like their transport and environmental policies, or you might be voting because land, there says here, I'm reading from the Telegraph, a new land reform law will be introduced by the SNP, which would see community groups given first refusal to purchase large areas of land that are being sold. Well, maybe that's why you vote for the SNP. You know, maybe you don't care about separation. The point is, the SNP can't use the fact that they got voted in as proof that everybody who voted for them voted for a second referendum. They can't say that because they're standing on a very diverse manifesto. If their only manifesto point was for a second referendum, then they would have a point. Then they could say everybody who voted for us voted for a second referendum. But when you're standing on a very diverse manifesto, including things like land reform and so on, then you can't claim that every single vote was a vote for a second referendum. You just can't do it, and it's just wrong to do so. I'm always kind of mystified at the SNPs. They always, for example, land reform, they have this idea that there's communities, quote-unquote communities in Scotland who are all falling over themselves to purchase thousands of acres of unproductive agricultural land in the Highlands. I mean, do such communities exist, really? I mean, maybe they do. Maybe I'm not aware of stuff, but I can't, it's a kind of fantasy, I think, because what are you going to do with that unproductive mountain land these days? What are you going to do with it? Breed midges. That's about the only thing I can think of. Breed pedigree midges. See if there's a market for that. Anyway, that's just one of the policies. Maybe it's a good policy, I don't really know. But people could be voting for that. The point is they're not necessarily voting for a second referendum, which happens to be in their manifesto. They're not necessarily voting for that. So you can't claim that their votes represent a mandate for a second referendum. It's the height of silliness to do that. That needs to be pointed out. I hope somebody does that. We need to educate SNP voters, allay their fears. We all want what is best for Scotland and the United Kingdom. This is too important for petty criticism. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to at our event on the 1st of May, which I'm plugging again, which is in George Square. Please be there for about 12:15 to get organised for a 1 p.m. start. We'll go on to 2:15. We're going to give a couple of speeches. I'm going to talk about the benefits and values and the positive case for the Union. Our other director is going to talk about some historical matters about Glasgow and how it benefited from the Union. And I'm also going to talk about how the Union came about in the first place, because this is very important. People say, oh, it's just history, and it is history, and we have to live in the year that we live in, 2021. However, so much of the debate around the Union is conducted on the terms of the Scottish nationalists, who do not want to believe and will not accept that in 1707 there were very good political reasons, economic reasons, military reasons, and especially at that time religious and royal dynastic reasons for the Union. They do not want to accept that there was a very good case for the Union. So what they do is they build up the idea that all the parliamentarians at the time were being quote-unquote bribed. So we're going to put that myth to bed. We're going to show that out of the 227 parliamentarians, only 30 of them received any kind of monetary compensation. And of that 30, one of them received 3/5 of that money, and he was already a long-standing supporter of the Union. And that was for money that he was already owed anyway. Similarly, for the others who received money, it was money that they were owed in wages for their work as parliamentarians. So, the overwhelming majority of them were also long-standing supporters of the Union anyway. And of some of them who received money, they didn't vote for the Union, they voted against it. And for 4 of them who received money, they didn't even have a vote anyway. So the bribery thing is just a complete piece of nonsense, but in the manner of their kind, they have spread these lies through the centuries because they do not want to accept that there were very good, proper and moral reasons at the time for the Union. Reasons that still exist today in their own modern way. Okay, and we're going to show that, and we're going to put to bed the false history of the Scottish nationalists and the lies that they spread. And we've been reading stuff, and some of the smears that they spread as well were utterly disgusting lies that they spread about some of the people who were promoting the Union. And it's just vile lies that they spread. Too vile actually to even mention publicly, but just nasty liars back then who they didn't get their way and they just started to smear. And some of them are still doing it today. So we'll put that notion to bed and we'll point out the good reasons, many of which, of course, at the time were religious and related around who was going to acquire the British throne when Queen Anne passed away without a Protestant heir. And that poor woman had 17 pregnancies and never was able to produce an heir. Her eldest child died at age 11, and that's when it all passed over to the Hanoverians and to George I, which was essentially what Scotland and England wanted to happen anyway. So yeah, we will show, as Richard says here, that the Scots wanted union, the majority of them. And for those Scots who were against it, they weren't against it for like modern democratic reasons. It was because there was a brand of dissenting Presbyterians who were afraid that the Union was going to bring increased Episcopalianism, which was seen as an English kind of version of they were afraid that it wasn't proper Protestantism, basically. So that's why, for example, the Cameronians, who were strict Presbyterians, that's why they burnt the Articles of Union in Dumfries. It wasn't because they were concerned about, anything like we'd be concerned about in the modern day, but with regarding democracy and stuff like that. It was, oh gosh, we're going to get increased Episcopalianism. That's why the Cameronians were against it. And various other strict Presbyterian groups. However, mainstream Presbyterianism was for it, but it was the dissenting Presbyterians who were able to exercise enough influence in order to ensure that when the Union came about, the Scottish Kirk was entirely protected, and there was no danger of it being taken over by any form of Anglicanism. Arguments that today seem quite removed, but at that time were, of course, vital and part of everything that was going on, because to such an extent back then, in the early 18th century, your religion was your politics. And Ryan's here with some history. Separatists would do well to recognise that it was the Scottish line of kings and queens, Stuart monarchs and Scottish parliamentarians, with whom were the strongest advocates of union and one kingdom throughout the 17th century. That's correct. During the 17th century, from the union of the crowns, okay, which was in 1603, from that period of time, James VI of Scotland, who became James VI of Great Britain, he wanted complete political union, and he promoted it several times in his reign. However, the English Parliament was for having none of that. They didn't want these mad Scotsmen to come down or to get in the way of their business. So he was a man before his time, and it took 100 years before Great Britain had sufficiently come together politically and socially and religiously for it to become possible. But even then, after the Glorious Revolution of 1689, the Scots immediately started to push for political union as well, and again from a point of view that it was going to help to preserve their help to protect them militarily against what was perceived as continental enemies. And so 1689 there was attempts made for union, and then 1702 there was another attempt made for union, but that fell through. These are all coming from the Scottish angle. And then it was the falling out over who should properly decide who would be the king or queen after Queen Anne passed away. That's what kind of really pushed both sides to realise that they were going to have to find some resolution to that, and ultimately it all was resolved in the 1707 Union of Parliaments. We're going to put together an article on that after we've given our speech about it on Saturday. But that's quite exciting to be able to be delivering that speech in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow. So please do come along if you can. If you're going to come along, please do tell us. Leave a message here in the comments, or please send us an email or message the page, or get a message to us somehow to tell us that you're coming, so that we can make sure that we provide enough materials for you on the day, because we'll provide all the flags and all the banners and so on. And it's going to be a great day. It's going to go very quickly. It's only going to be for an hour or so, but we do want to see you coming along, and who knows, you might get your face in the national newspapers or on social media. So please do come along and spread the word about this. So please do share this video and retweet on Twitter. And if you can retweet with a positive comment, then we'll retweet that to 26,000 people, which will help you get your message out as well. Well said, Stephen. We've had a massive impact and influence on the UK. Our Union flag alone is one symbol of this. The Union flag created by James VI of Scotland. And good that you should say that, Stephen, because that brings us into this article, which I want to talk about. Sturgeon and Salmon like to play the victims, but it was Scots who made the UK. And he talks a lot of the sort of things here Daniel Hannan does in the Sunday Telegraph of the 18th of April. A lot of the things that we talk about as well. He talks about how James VI wanted to create a single realm and to style himself King of Great Britain. Absolutely. That's why we call him King of Great Britain. Even if the historians want to dance about by calling him James VI of Scotland and James I of England, He made it clear that he wanted to be called King of Great Britain. But again, the various politicians at the day didn't want that. But so we call him King of Great Britain. We call him James VI of Great Britain, because he was the 6th James in the territory which became the realm of Great Britain. And then he talks about other things. Many Scots saw the creation of Great Britain as providential. That's true. Presbyterian ministers spoke of Scotland and England as Israel and Judah, sister kingdoms raised by God. Listen to the opening lines of Rule Britannia. When Britain first at heaven's command arose from out the azure main. Their author, the Scottish poet James Thomson, was expressing what was in 1740 a widely held belief that Britain's ascendancy was divinely ordained. And then he ends by this, which I'm just going to quote. I think it's great. Yet Scotland's past is far nobler than the Alba Braveheart myth. A small nation at the edge of the world bred a peculiarly enterprising and inventive people. Seeking an outlet for their genius, they joined the kindred nation to their south, a nation to which they were already bound by blood and speech and faith. In doing so, they created a new nation, the most powerful and influential humanity had known, a nation which used its strength to spread parliamentary rule, private property, free inquiry, limited government, and personal liberty. Isn't that the most inspiring story of all? That's a great quote, and I'm going to read that out on Saturday. That's a great quote. But what I like there that he says is that we created a new nation, and that's so important to understand, is that it was a new nation, a third nation, if you like, on top of Scotland and England. A new nation called Great Britain, politically called Great Britain, a new nation state called Great Britain. And that's what the Scottish nationalists don't want to accept. They look on this, what we're going through at the moment, as Scotland breaking away from England, and they wonder why England won't just let us go. But it's not about Scotland breaking away from England. It's about Scotland breaking up Great Britain. It's about Scotland destroying the UK. That's what it's about. That's why everybody is involved in this. That's why the British government, the government of the United Kingdom, that's why it has a say. Whatever you may think about it, whatever you may think about the people in Westminster, the British government has a say because it falls to them. The duty, the right, the responsibility falls to them to hold the United Kingdom together. It's not about Scotland and England, it's about Scotland and Great Britain. Indeed, Richard, it was a wonderful providence, and the subsequent history has been extraordinary. That's right. Just as the economic benefits were apparent then and are still apparent now. Goodness sake, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to find out who has won this amazing jelly bean extravaganza with at least 50 jelly beans of each of a different flavour. Okay, let's find out who won that and if we do indeed have a winner. And let me see who has come in. We do have a winner. We do have a winner. And let me put up the winner. Here we go. Debbie, you got in straight away with that answer and asked what square is Henry Dundassy's statue in? And the answer is St Andrew Square. St Andrew Square. Not actually St Andrew's Square, but St Andrew Square. But Debbie got that correct, St Andrew Square, and so this will be firing its way to our winner. Alan, I'm afraid you just missed out, Alan. You just missed out. Fantastic. Well, that's good. Debbie says, I was not expecting that. I was slow today. Well, Debbie, I hope you can tell us what the beans are like, the jelly beans. I think they're good from what I've heard. Tommy says, well done. And Stephen says he's going to take them all. Good stuff. Well, folks, we're going to be back tomorrow on... hopefully we'll be doing a broadcast at 12:30, a countdown in the community broadcast. Didn't do a couple the last 2 days because we've been so busy organising Saturday's event. Again, Saturday's event, 1st of May, Great British Union Day celebration in George Square. If you can be there, please do send us a message, tell us you're coming so that we can prepare, so that we know, because the authorities also like to know how many to expect and things like that. It's going to be very well organised, it's going to go very smoothly, and it's going to be fun, and the Scottish Nationals will be at the other side of the square, just whining on about separation and their entirely negative message, whereas we're going to be given our very positive message of talking up Scotland and talking up the United Kingdom, because we know we are rich enough and clever enough and big enough here in Scotland to share our wealth and to share everything that we have up here in Scotland with our family throughout the United Kingdom. So folks, thank you very much for watching. Next Wednesday we'll have 1 day to go before the Scottish ejection. Thank you all for your comments. Susan says, Debbie, don't eat them all at once. Sandra says, enjoy, Debbie. TC got a nice comment there. Thank you for an informative show. Love hearing our British history. We're pretty British history heavy this today. I think it's because that's where my head is, because I'm planning the speeches for Saturday. Bound in blood and history, we are one kingdom. Absolutely, one united kingdom. Linda's wishing everybody the best for those who are going to George Square this Saturday. Tommy, thanks for your comments that have come in. And Alan says, have a good afternoon all. Have a good afternoon to you. It just remains for me to say, folks, we'll be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen.